Clergy Alert. Today, more than ever, the clergy, church, and nonprofit organizations must know where they stand. If you're not sure what you're doing is correct, you may not be doing it the right way. 20 things you must know to avoid a tragedy in the future. Things that will help you understand how to get your house of worship in total divine order. And now, a man that is a nationally renowned speaker. He lectures before thousands of ministers, churches, deacons, and treasurers across the United States. This man is considered to be an authority on nonprofit and churches throughout America. People turn to him because he knows what's going on. And now I present to you nationally renowned speaker and author Michael Chitwood.
Welcome to Clergy Alert. 20 things that you must know to avoid a tragedy in the future. Things that you must adjust to, prepare for, and understand today in order to prevent something happening that would be tragedy to you in the future. I can tell you what these 20 things are, or an IRS agent can tell you what they are for your church or your ministry. My job today is to simply mention and list the points for you. I know that some of you may never ever come with me for me to be your representative for your bookkeeping or your accounting and your financial affairs. But I still feel responsible because God has called me to notify you of the things that will help your ministry so that your ministry can be a ministry in compliance. My question to you today, is your ministry, is your house of worship a house that's in total compliance and order? If not, then you may be in serious trouble. Today I'm going to give you 20 things that you must know immediately so that you can get your house of worship in order. Let's begin now. Get you a pad, get you a note, draw all of the people around that's interested in the financial and the legal aspects of your ministry. Let's get started because today can be a powerful teaching so that you can get your house of worship in total divine order. Let's begin now. Point number one. One of the biggest problems that we have in churches and ministries across America today is the failure of churches to issue 1099 forms to all of the people that render a service for your ministry. Mainly, and the number one problem is where that evangelists and guest speakers and teachers and psalmists come to your church and they render a service. They work and they provide a service to the people of your church. The law says that if they work in your ministry or your church, and if you pay them money, that you're required to give them a 1099 form at the end of the year for the money that you paid them during the year. My question to you today is simply this. Now listen carefully to this because this may help you more than what you can imagine. My question to you today is simply this. Who is going to pay the income tax on what you paid to that visiting evangelist or teacher? Is it going to be the church? Is it going to be you? Or is it going to be the person that received the money? Your job today is to make sure that you understand all of the aspects that deal with the failure of churches to issue 1099 forms. And furthermore, the penalties, if you have not issued these forms, ladies and gentlemen, can be absolutely extraordinary on your ministry. I don't want to see that happen to you, so your job today is to make sure that your house of worship is a house in divine order. Point number two. As we discuss point number two, is something that's very important to me because you know and I know that your wife works very hard in your ministry, in your church, doing a lot of work, maybe more work than some of the other people that work in your ministry. My question to you today is simply this. How can you prove without any doubt that your wife works in your ministry? How can you prove that to an IRS agent that's standing there asking you, prove to me that your wife works in this ministry and that you're just not cutting her or issuing her a check for the money for the work that you said that she did? Did she work? Can you prove it? Your job is to make sure that you can answer these questions when the time comes. Point number 3. You know and I know that Sister Jones, she's one of your faithful members in your church. She's been there for years. She's kind of the rock of the church. She always fills out her offering envelope, and she always puts more on the outside than she puts on the inside. For example, she may write $100 that she was trying to give on the outside of the offering envelope and only put $10 on the inside. Well, you know and I know that you can't do that. My question to you today is this: how can you prove to others and to the IRS that you didn't take the difference between $100 and $10? What happened to the money? Now, you know and I know that it was never in there, but how can you prove that without any question, beyond a reasonable doubt, that your house of worship and your accounting records are in compliance? Can you prove that you or others did not take the difference between $100 and $10? This is point number 4. With point number 4, I would like to deal with housing allowance. This is section 107 of the Internal Revenue Code. It's the best section of the Internal Revenue Code for the clergy, for ministers of the gospel. Why? Because it entitles you to a housing allowance that's tax-free if you spend all that you receive from your ministry or your church. But first of all, I'd like to teach you a word and teach you your job description, just in the event that you do not understand or know this particular point. First of all, the law says that you must be performing your sacerdotal duties, your ministerial functions. There's 9 sacerdotal functions or duties that deal with the clergies and their housing allowance. I'd like to give those to you at this time. Number 1 is baptisms. Number 2 is weddings. Number 3 is funerals. Number 4 is Eucharist, or the Lord's Supper, or communion. Number 5 is teaching. Number 6 is baby dedication or baby christening. Number 7, spiritual counseling. Number 8, the administration of the church affairs to some extent. And number 9, and this is the most important one of all of these 9, and that is the regular conducting of a worship service. Now, I've just listed for you the 9 sacerdotal functions that you should be doing in order to qualify for all of the benefits under this housing code. I have a simple question for you today, my brothers and sisters, and that's simply this. Under Section 107, how much can you take for housing allowance? Is it 2 times? Is it 3 times? Or is it 4 times the amount that you paid for your house? You have to know exactly, unquestionably, what the law says about this item on housing allowance. Your job is to make sure that you're prepared to do that. Do you believe that there is a law against taking part of the evangelist offering when he comes in and speaks at your church for a revival or for a one-day session? If you have a gentleman to come in and speak at your church service on a Sunday and you receive him a love offering from the body, from your church members, and that offering is larger than what you think it should be, is there a law against taking part of his evangelist offering and putting it into the church? You might say this: well, I know that this person meant for part of this to go for their tithes and offerings and not to the evangelist. Have you broken a constructive trust agreement with what you presented to your people versus what you're actually going to give to your evangelist? Ladies and gentlemen, you have to be very careful. You have to know what the law says about a constructive trust agreement. Because if someone comes in and you tell your people under designated fund rules that you're receiving a love offering for this individual, you have just made a covenant to that group of people that whatever comes in is going to be given to that evangelist. Can you keep part of the evangelist offering? You need to make sure that you know the answer to that. Ladies and gentlemen, as we continue things that will avoid a tragedy for you, I want to talk to you about an important issue. Now, you know as well as I do that I want ministers of the gospel to look nice. I want you to have nice clothing, nice shoes, and I want you to look nice. It's part of the way that you should look. We expect you to look nice. Your members expect you to look nice. But did you know that you cannot buy clothing anymore, suits or ties or shoes, and deduct those off of your personal tax return? And did you know that the church cannot buy those for you? And if you've been doing that, you're going to go to jail because you're breaking the law, or at least you'll have substantial penalties involved. And did you know, furthermore, that you cannot buy suits for missionaries now and deduct those off of your personal tax return? But there's a way to get around this. There's certain clothing that is still available for you to buy, or for the church to buy, and it still be tax deductible, or the church can pay for it. The main thing is this: I want you to look nice. Always keep a good attitude, always hold yourself high, and always have yourself in a presentable position like you always have been in the past. We expect you to look nice with nice clothing. As we look at number 7, it deals with your automobile. My question to you is this: you know as well as I do that at the end of the year you sat down and you try to figure out everywhere you have gone, everybody that you have seen for that year, so that you'll have your logbook complete. Now, you know that you have to keep a logbook. There's absolutely no question about that according to the Internal Revenue Code. But your job is you're supposed to keep that logbook on a day-to-day basis, not sit down at the end of the year and do one whole year for one particular logbook. Well, I know what you're doing, and I know that you're too busy to be sitting down doing logbooks. You ought to be in the ministry and move out of administration or paperwork. Did you know that you may be doing too much paperwork? Here's what we found that works in our organization for all of the thousands of churches that we represent and have contact with across America. We require them to keep a 4-month profile of everywhere they go, who they saw, where they were going, what they were going to do, document their odometer reading, and then at the end of the year, we have them to do one more month, which is the month of December, and then we take an accumulative picture of all of those items and come up with the appropriate percentage. I don't think that you need to be doing a logbook every day, every month for 12 solid months. What I'd like to do is this. You probably have someone that represents you that is supposed to be a nonprofit specialist. I want you to call them on the phone, and I want you to ask them, what does the law say and what will they accept? And then I want you to do one additional thing. Don't stop there with that. What I want you to do is I want you to go to them and ask them to write this in what we call a letter of opinion or a legal opinion. Things that you hear your accountant say on the telephone and things that you hear your people advise you on the telephone, ladies and gentlemen, what do you have later to come back to when someone may challenge what they told you to do and you do not have it in writing? Here's your job. Listen carefully to me. Here's your job. I want you to call that individual that represents you. Let's see what he knows. If he's really the man or the woman that he says he is, and he's representing nonprofit ministries across America, and he has more than one, let's see what he knows. Let's keep him to the test. Let's put him to the fire and make them put this in writing for you so that you can have your answer, your qualification, your answer that you're wanting from them in writing. It's important. I think you can reduce your paperwork. And my job is not to make you do more paperwork, it's to make you do a whole lot less so that you can take the time that you need to feed your people of the church, stay in the Word, and build your church. If you'll listen to me, I can help you build your church. And the only objective and the only mission that I have in life that God has called me to, and that is to help you have the time so that you can do the things that God's asked you and told you to do and not deal with IRS paperwork, regulations, and the things that you are not best in doing. I want to discuss something with you that I consider vitally important. And I want you to listen to this message for just a moment here. It's important that you realize where I'm coming from and where I want you to take your thinking to. Just to know where you are right now, I want you to consider asking the person that represents you, your accountant or your lawyer. I want you to ask them a question. Ask them how many hours a year they attend going to nonprofit seminars. I could not do the job for you or for my clients unless I attend at least 40 hours a year. In fact, I require many of my staff members to assist me and to accompany me, along with my father, H.C. Chitwood. Every year we're sitting, we're learning, because changes are coming. And you know as well as I do that the changes are coming quickly, and if your person is not keeping up with these laws, then pretty soon you'll get so far behind that there's no way that your house of worship will be in order. So what I want you to do is I want you to make sure that you have an accountant or a lawyer that's representing you that doesn't just sit around and write newsletters. It's one thing to sit and talk on the telephone every day and write newsletters, but do you have a man or do you have a woman that's been in the situation to represent you with the on-the-job experience? Writing newsletters, ladies and gentlemen, is a lot different from doing bookkeeping in a general ledger or a general journal situation. Make sure you have someone that knows what they're doing, that's going to stand behind you, and make sure that when the going gets tough that they don't run. Make sure that you have all of these things down, and make sure that your person that's representing you is for you. Because if not, you may not have the position that you need in your church. I believe in you. I want you to have the strongest, best church in America. And what's more important is I know that you can do it, but you need that underlayment. You need someone to set you up and to be strong for you so that we can take care of all of the administration, and all you do is take care of what God told you to do. You can do it. I've got confidence in you, and churches that come with me have grown tremendously over the years. And what's more important is you've got the same talent, abilities, and treasures that they have. Why don't you start putting it to use? Get you a team together that you're confident in. You can make a difference. As we examine point number 9, I want to talk about counting the money in the church. Offerings collected in the church. We know that all the offerings collected must go into an offering envelope. And when you put the offering into the offering envelope, then it's time for somebody to take it out and count it. And as we go through that process, I'd like to examine with you who should count the money. How many people should count the money? How many people should count the money? 2, 3, 4, or 24? You have to know what the answer is to that. You can't just have one person counting the money in your church. It's not good business judgment. It's not confidence that we need, the trust level that we need for the people that's given the money to your church. Your job is who counts the money. We know they have to be unrelated people, and we also know that you have to have a certain number of people counting the money. How many people should count the money? 2, 3, 4, or 24? You must know the answer to that question. Point number 10. As we discuss point number 10, I want to deal with the subject of your employment status. Are you an employee, ministers, or are you self-employed? Now, it used to be, up until a few years ago, that you could consider to be self-employed. Well, you're not self-employed necessarily anymore. Now you have what we refer to as a dual status upon you. The only profession in the world that has a dual status is the clergymen or clergywomen of America. So now let me give you your status. You are an employee for federal income tax purposes, and you are self-employed for Social Security purposes. Now, the point behind this particular point, number 10, and that is that you must now receive a W-2 from your employer. Who is your employer? It's the church or the nonprofit ministry where you're working and performing daily services for that ministry. They cannot give you a 1099 form, and if they have in the past, then you are in serious trouble. You must have a W-2 form from your church or the nonprofit ministry where you're employed and the services that you perform for that organization or for that church. Now, with that in mind, I want to deal with the ordination test for just a moment. How can somebody be ordained? Is someone ordained just because they have an ordination certificate from some group that may ordain people or individuals? That doesn't mean anything. As I told you earlier in this 20 ways on how you can avoid a tragedy in your church or in your life in the future, we understand that the certificate doesn't mean anything. What means something is necessarily what the person is doing. Are they doing the 9 sacerdotal functions? And then we apply the test of the ordination certificate. Your job today is you have to make very sure that you know that if your organ player is only playing the organ, that he may be ordained for our Father's purpose in heaven, but he's not ordained for tax purposes. You also need to know if your youth minister is only leading the youth on field trips, is he or she ordained? Yes, for our Father's purposes, but not for tax purposes. So you have to realize today, my brothers and sisters, that just because you have that big gold-plated ordination certificate on your wall, framed beautifully in your office to impress those that come in, we have to make sure that that means nothing. What means something is what is the job description of that individual. What are they doing? You need to know the answer to that question. Point number 11. I want to discuss with you on how long you have to keep your records in the church, your offering envelopes. Some people think that they can take up an offering on Sunday and throw the offering envelopes away kindly on Monday, so to speak. Well, I want to explain to you that you can't do that. Most people that are of any authority in this business at all, and be careful that you don't listen to self-proclaimed tax experts. Go with someone that's been a firm for years, that's been in this for 40 or 50 years, like our firm. My father and myself, we've been together for years, representing preachers and ministries across America. And guess what? The most beautiful part about all that is we absolutely love it. We love what we do. It's not just someone that's after $1 or after a fee. This has been something that God has called me to. He hasn't appointed me for this. He's called me for this. And I know how to work with ministers. But what's most important is we're dealing with this subject. You have to know how long you have to keep your records. How long do you keep your records in the church? Your offering envelopes, your canceled checks, your bank statements, and all the records that deal with your ministry. You have to make sure that you understand that you have to keep those for a period of 7 years. You can't throw your offering envelopes away after a short year or 2 years. You must keep them for 7 years and all of the records in your church, because that's your source document. Why would you dare destroy your source document, my brother, my sister? Why would you dare do away with an audit trail? Because remember, the burden of proof is always upon you. You have to prove what this was and how this came about. The onus, the burden, always lies with the taxpayer or the church or the person that is the responsible party. So you have to make sure as you go through this that you keep your records for 7 long years, including all offering envelopes. Point number 12 deals with love offerings. What constitutes a taxable love offering in your ministry, your church? What's a non-taxable love offering? You have to know the answers to these, because we know what Section 61 of the Internal Revenue Code says. It says what the compensation is called, how the compensation is computed, and the very form of payment is immaterial. Now, the most important word there is the word immaterial. So it doesn't make any difference if you call something a free will love offering. You have to know, is it a taxable love offering or is it non-taxable? Let me give you the answer to that question today, so that in the event that your accounting firm or the person that you listen to doesn't know this, you'll be able to share this with them. And I invite you to share this tape with your professional and see, put them to the test. Let's see if they're doing the job that they're charging you for. And we always know that cheap advice is expensive. So if someone's doing your church books for free, you're probably getting just about nothing because you're paying nothing. Be careful, beware. Don't play around with this, preacher. Don't play around with this. You could be in serious trouble. Let me give you the answer to that first question. What declares a taxable love offering? It says this: the one sure way to determine that you will always have a taxable love offering is to see if there's any service attached to that event. Let me say that again, so if you're taking notes that you can record this down. The one sure way to determine that you will always have a taxable love offering is to see if there's any service attached to that event that took place. So what you have to do is you have to determine, is the person that you're rendering a service, is the person that's rendering a service, are you paying them? And if you are, is it taxable? If so, then you have to give them that 1099 form that I've spoken to you about earlier in this presentation. So your job is easy now. Determine, is there a service? And if there's not a service. Point number 13. Listen carefully. In the event that you have people rendering a service in your ministry, you're required by law to have a W-9 form on file for all of the individuals that's performing a service. In other words, you can't give them their honorarium or their stipend or their free will love offering or their love token or love gift, whatever you called it. Remember what I said is immaterial. You can't give them that until you first have this W-9 form filled out. You know, I've been preaching and teaching and instructing people for years now, but it never ceases to amaze me that there's a certain group of people, lawyers and accountants, that's coming about, and they say, you don't have to give people 1099 forms. You don't have to issue W-9 forms. Remember what I told you, cheap advice is expensive. It's going to cost you more now than it could have cost you in the past because you didn't pay much or you paid little. So you have to realize that a W-9 is required for each and every individual that renders a service. Now, Congress is contemplating on adding to that professional corporations. So as a matter of update for you and somewhat of a disclaimer, because this presentation is going out to hundreds of thousands of people over the next few years, I want to make sure that you check with the law, or check with the person that's representing you and see when it goes into effect. It could be into effect now as you're watching this presentation. Your job is to make sure that you get W-9 forms before the service is engaged or rendered. Make sure that you have a W-9 form on every individual that's going to perform a service in your ministry. It's your job. Make sure that you have your house of worship in order, because judgment begins at the house of God. As we're coming up to the last few that we have, they're probably some of the most important ones. I want you to pay real close attention. Gather the ones around that's involved in being your treasurer or your clerk or whoever does your church books. Let's learn together. Let's learn, because things are changing. As I talk to you about this one, I want you to listen very carefully about the specialization that you have in the accounting firm. Sometimes it's very difficult to find someone that knows how to do your books and your accounting that's a specialist in this field. For example, if I was to ask you now, what are some of the laws that deal with benevolence and needy families? Are auxiliary accounts illegal? How do you handle free will love offerings to people that are missionaries? Have you filled out the W-8 form? Do you fill out a W-10 form? Do you use a W-4? If I were to ask you these questions, would you know how they apply to your church? Now, I'm not saying this to hurt you. I'm saying this to help you. I never mean for my message to be threatening. I want my message to be thrilling, because we always know it's not what you know that will hurt you. It's not what you know that will hurt you, my brothers and sisters. It's what you don't know. And what I want to do is inform you of the things that you don't know, because in the Bible it says people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. I don't want you to be destroyed. And some of you are in serious condition today because this is your first hearing. And for that, I'm deeply grateful. I'm also very sorry that this is the first time for years that you've heard this. So as we examine what we need to do, it's important for us to realize that you have to have a firm that's a specialty firm, that knows how to do churches, that does thousands of churches yearly and monthly. people that are called to the ministry of helps to help you in your finance and your accounting. I'm that man. I can help you. But before you discharge your firm, what I want you to do is give them the benefit of the doubt. Don't come to me yet until you're absolutely sure that your man hasn't answered up on the serious questions that deal with the things that I've discussed with you today. So give him the benefit of the doubt. Don't discharge him yet, but eventually I know by the Spirit of the Lord that you are going to be with me. You know why? Because this is what God has called me to, and I'm anointed this day to help you with the 20 things that you must know to prevent or avoid a tragedy. Point number 15. As I discuss point number 15 with you, this is one of the serious violations that clergy and the church has today. I want to make sure that you understand it clear. So I'm going to take just a little bit longer with this because I want to make sure that you are completely satisfied with what you're doing and how to do it. So let's begin point number 15. Credit cards. I know what you say. That's a sore subject with some people. Let's discuss it. Credit cards. Let me ask you a question. Do you have a church credit card? Have you put personal items on that church credit card? Or let me ask you this. Do you have a personal credit card and you've put church items on the personal credit card? Let me tell you something. You've committed a serious offense there, ladies and gentlemen. If you have a church credit card and you've placed personal items on the church credit card and you say to your bookkeeper, well, I'll reimburse you or I'll pay you back later. Let me tell you something. That church credit card is only to be used for what? Church business only. People to take out to dinner, to talk business with, and business supplies and things of that nature. So what you have to do is make sure that you do not use that church credit card for anything other than church business. You could be preventing the church from having their determination letter in full force. You could have their tax-exempt status revoked. So what you need to do is you need to realize that the church is totally separate from you. Do not commingle these funds. Do not commingle these credit cards. Make sure that you realize that your church is a separate entity, just like you are separate from your church. So the question is this: how do you correct this? My question to you is this: why hasn't your man told you this was wrong? Why hasn't your representative told you that this is improper? Your job is to make sure that you go back immediately and correct these violations that you have in your ministry today. Number 16, magnetic filing. As I come to the last part of this, the most serious things that will devastate the church world in this year that we're in and years to come, and that is this. We have to make sure that we understand what magnetic filing is. So let me begin. Electronic filing is where you normally send something through the telephone wires by way of modem. Magnetic filing is where that you send a disc or a tape straight to the Internal Revenue Service, and on that disc or tape is all of your magnetic media, which pertains to information returns. In other words, did you know that you can't send paper to the IRS anymore that deals with your W-2s and your 1099s and all of the information forms that you should be filing? You can't send 1099s and W-2s to the IRS with paper anymore if you are above a certain number. And that number has been dropping for years. It used to be 500, then it dropped to 250, then it dropped to 50, and from what I understand, it's even going to go lower than that. So we have to get ready. We have to get our in-house accounting system prepared because you cannot send paper to the IRS anymore. Point number 17, TaxLink, a brand new program that's just been introduced by the Internal Revenue Service and the Department of Treasury. It's a financial management system where that when you owe taxes to the Internal Revenue Service or to the Department of Treasury for taxes, that they can automatically have those funds transferred from your church bank account to the Treasury's bank account. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you can say what you want to say, but it looks to me like that things are getting pretty serious. And it looks to me like if you haven't heard about TaxLink and if you haven't heard about magnetic filing, that you're running way behind times. I just wonder today how you will be judged. You know, it takes me back to a chapter in the Bible called Luke 16. And in the book of Luke, they're talking about one specific point on this area, and it deals with this. It says, if I can be trusted with small things, or let me change that, if you can be trusted with small things, then He knows that He can trust you with great and mighty things. What the job is today, can you be trusted where you're at? Are you at the trust level that you can move to the next trust level? If not, then ladies and gentlemen, you'll never move up. Did you know about TaxLink? Did you know about magnetic filing? It's part of your job. You're the senior pastor of the church. You're the administrator of the church. You have to make sure that you know what you're doing. If you're going to wear those hats, then you have to make sure that you know about TaxLink. TaxLink could be the most devastating tragedy that has ever hit the church world. Could be, especially if you don't know all the rules and regulations that deal with TaxLink. So I want to encourage you, learn about magnetic filing. Can your firm file magnetically like we can for all the churches that we represent? Do you know about TaxLink? It's your job to make sure that you understand that. As I discuss 18 with you, it deals with private annulment. What in the world is private annulment? Now, I know that you probably have an accounting firm or maybe your law firm that's never told you about that word, but it's in the Internal Revenue Code. In fact, some of the national ministries across America have been charged with private annulment. So I have to tell you what it is. Private annulment means taking advantage of a particular situation for the benefit of an individual. Let me say that again. Private annulment is taking advantage of a particular situation for the benefit of a private individual. In other words, when you engage in private annulment, it could be that you're taking too much salary. How do you know that your salary's not too high? How do you know that your salary's not too low, that you could be taking more? In fact, you know what I found? I found that a lot of ministers could be taking a lot more salary than they actually are taking. I want you to be paid what you're supposed to be paid. In fact, Paul tells us that in the book of Timothy. 1 Timothy 5:17 and 18, he says, pastors who do their work well should be paid well, especially those who work hard at both teaching and preaching. And then he talks about the rest of it. He says, well, shouldn't we have a greater right to the funds? The Lord has given orders this day that those who preach the gospel should be supported by those who have been accepted by the gospel. So your job is this. Make sure that you know if your salary's too high. Make sure you know if your salary's too low. And make sure that all of your package that you're taking, your fringe benefits, your ministry-related expenses, and your housing allowance does not create a private annulment state for your church. Because if it does, it could cost you your tax-exempt status. Be careful. Don't play around with this. Make sure that you know that your house of worship is in order. As I discuss number 19 with you, I want to talk about designated giving. What qualifies designated giving in your ministry? There's only 4 things that qualify designated giving in the ministry. One is it has to be done corporately in nature. You know what that means. That means the whole body knows about that particular request from the authority of the pulpit or the authority of the church government. Number 2, no strings attached. In fact, I believe that Paul said something like that what you hold on to, you lose, and what you give away, you get back. People love to give money to the church. They love to give money to the church, but they like to hold on to it. You can't let your people give offerings to your church and keep a string attached to that gift. You need to stop that. Number 3, it has to be arm's length distance. You know what that means. It means arm's length. Number 4, it has to be given with lack of influence because of any personal gain. Lack of influence due to any personal gain in your ministry. So designated gifts is pretty important. Along with that, what are the 4 items? What are the 4 items that you can record on a parishioner's or contribution record? Let me give those to you now. 1 is cash. 2 is checks. 3 is credit cards. And 4 is money orders. You cannot record donated property and you cannot record donated services. You have to know these important facts. You know why? This will help you avoid, and it will help you prevent a tragedy in the future of your church or in your personal life. You can be held responsible for the actions of your board, your treasurer, your church, and even things that you thought they were doing, they may not be doing. Get your house of worship in order today. Point number 20. This is the last point. It's the most important point as far as I'm concerned. As I've told you all throughout this presentation, this has been something that I wanted to do. The reason why that I did this is because the Lord told me to do it. There's a lot of churches that will never come with me. I know that. Some churches think I'm a little too aggressive. Some churches think my personality's not right. I can tell you that my heart's right. My personality may not be right. My head may not be right in some areas, but I can tell you one thing, my heart is right. My heart is right because God has placed a call upon my life, preacher, staff member, administrator, all of the people in church. God has placed a call on my life. It's a burning desire to help ministers across America. I want to help you get your records straightened out because I know what's coming. And ladies and gentlemen, it's serious. It's going to be devastating to the church world if you're not ready. I can help you. I know what to do. I'm good at what I do, and I don't say that from a standpoint of trying to be bragging or egotistical. I just know what to do because this is my life. My daddy knows what to do, and all of my staff members that work with me, we're committed, we're dedicated to making sure that your house of worship is a house that's in solid divine order, built upon a good foundation financially, so that when you get ready to do the things that you want to do, you can do it without any question that it's going to be right. Also, furthermore, and to this extent, I want to say to you, it's not what you know that will hurt you. It's not what you know that will hurt you. It's always what you don't know that will always hurt you. And remember this, cheap advice is always expensive. Sometimes when you're getting a job done and you're not paying for it, you normally pay for just about what you get. I want to encourage you. I want to let you know that there's a firm in America today that loves you. We care for you. That's why we provide a vast number of 800 numbers for all of our churches to call us anytime, anywhere. We're there 6 days a week. We're ready to help you. We're committed to the ministry of helps, of helping ministers across America get their house of worship in order. Finally, and to this end, I want to thank you for this opportunity that you've given to me to share with you 20 things which will help you avoid and prevent a tragedy this year or next year or maybe just in the future. I want you to know that I have meant to help you today. My heart is I hope that I've helped you. I hope that you gleaned something from this. But most of all, you have the power to get your house of worship in order. Remember, the difference between a possibility and an impossibility is you. You can get your house of worship in order. I'd like to leave you with these 10 two-letter words. It says this, if it is to be, it is up to me. You can do it. Thank you very much for your time and your courtesies. May God richly bless you, your family, and your church.
Thank you for allowing us to help you today. Remember, always make your house of worship a house that is in total order. Clergy, Tax, and Law is an educational division that presents information and seminars across America to help the clergy and the church get their house of worship in order. Also, they have a complete library of tapes and books that will help you understand as you go through this national church compliance system on an easy-to-follow step-by-step basis on how you can audit yourself and get your house of worship in order. Remember, cheap advice is expensive. Don't shortchange your ministry by people who don't know what they're doing. Hire an experienced person that knows what he's doing. Michael Chitwood is that man. For more information, call immediately. 1-800-225-5849 or area code 615-892-4882 to request to speak to a church audit specialist. Don't wait too late. Today is the best day and could be the very beginning of your ministry. God bless you, and thank you for joining us today on 20 things that'll change your future and avoid a tragedy.